12 seconds. That's the legend, the time it supposedly took for a Spartan to decide your fate on the battlefield. But what does 12 seconds really mean when you're facing the most feared warriors of the ancient world? That's all it would take for a Spartan to end you. In the chaos of clashing shields and screaming warriors, 12 seconds was an eternity for everyone else. But for a Spartan, it was more than enough. The myth that anyone could survive even that long against a Spartan is pure fantasy. These were not ordinary men. They were living weapons, honed by a lifetime of discipline and brutality. Spartans weren't just soldiers. They were the product of a society obsessed with perfection in war. Every aspect of their lives was engineered for one thing: efficient, merciless killing. Their armor, their weapons, even their minds were sharpened for battle. Forget modern athletes or action heroes. No training montage or gym routine could prepare you for what a Spartan endured. Their strength and endurance were legendary, but it was their mindset that truly set them apart. Spartans were forged by relentless hardship, not comfort. From the moment they could walk, they were tested, starved, beaten, and forced to survive in the wild. Every weakness was burned away. Their training began at birth and never truly ended. The agoj, their brutal education system, shaped boys into warriors through pain, deprivation, and constant competition. The phalanx they formed was their monument, a wall of bronze and muscle that dominated ancient battlefields. Each man was a link in an unbreakable chain, moving as one, striking with terrifying precision. To face a Spartan was not a contest. It was an execution. Their reputation alone could break the will of their enemies before a single blow was struck. The gulf between us and them is a chasm, physically, mentally, psychologically. Their world was one of constant struggle, where only the strongest survived. Today, we'll strip away the myths and see what made Spartans the ultimate human weapon. We'll uncover the truth behind their legend and the reality of their existence. We'll journey into their world, their training, and their terrifying reality. The story of the Spartans is not just about war. It's about the price of greatness. And you'll see why 12 seconds is a statistical impossibility, because against a Spartan, time itself was your enemy. In ancient Sparta, life began not with joy, but with a test of survival. The birth of a child was not a cause for celebration, but the start of a harsh evaluation. From the very first breath, a newborn's fate hung in the balance, determined by the strictest standards of strength and health. Every newborn boy was brought before the Gerousia, the Council of Elders, a group of wise but unyielding men who held the power of life and death. They examined each infant, searching for any sign of frailty or imperfection. Any hint of weakness, any flaw, meant immediate rejection. There was no room for mercy, no exceptions, no sentimentality. The decision was final, and the consequences were fatal. This was the law of Sparta, enforced with unwavering resolve. The survival of the state depended on the strength of its people. The state, not the family, made the call. Parents had no say. The community's needs came first, and the individual was always secondary. Only those deemed strong enough were allowed to survive and be raised as Spartans, destined for a life of discipline and endurance. Spartan mothers were famously tough, bathing their infants in wine to test their constitution and refusing to swaddle them so their limbs would grow strong and free. They taught their children not to cry, believing that tears were a sign of weakness and that only the resilient would thrive. Childhood in Sparta was a prelude to hardship, not comfort. From the earliest days, children were prepared for a life of struggle and endurance. The first 7 years at home were not for play, but for preparation, a time to build resilience before facing the true crucible of Spartan society. At age 7, the boy was taken from his family, leaving behind his childhood and any sense of individuality. From that moment, his life belonged to the state. He entered the Agog, the rigorous training system that would shape him into a Spartan warrior, forging unity and discipline above all else. Only the strongest survived this journey. The weak never made it this far, and only the most resilient would become true Spartans. At 7, Spartan boys entered the Agog, a brutal, state-run training system. They lived in barracks, stripped of individuality, enduring cold, hunger, and violence. Food was scarce by design, forcing them to steal, and punishing them if caught. Discipline was enforced with beatings. Cunning and toughness were rewarded. Fights were encouraged to identify the strongest. The Agog broke the weak and forged the survivors into steel. Spartan training was relentless, designed to create bodies that could endure anything. Boys went barefoot, toughening their feet for rocky terrain. Hunger was constant, building lean, efficient bodies. Training was functional, running, wrestling, javelin, and war dances in armor. Rituals like the cheese-stealing flogging at Artemis Orthia tested pain tolerance. Some boys died and were honored for it. Every exercise built explosive power, endurance, and indifference to pain. Spartans weren't bodybuilders. They were predators, built for war. Their bodies were weapons, optimized for survival and killing. The Agog produced physical specimens unmatched in the ancient world. When Spartans stripped for exercise, even other Greeks were in awe. This was not about looks. It was about creating the ultimate warrior. Spartan training was as much mental as physical. The Agog erased individuality, forging absolute loyalty to the group. Cowardice was the ultimate sin. Social death was worse than dying in battle. Return with your shield, or on it. There was no third option. Spartans spoke little, but with cutting clarity, a discipline that projected confidence and control. Their silence was a weapon unnerving enemies used to bluster. The Agog was the ultimate stress inoculation. Constant hunger, pain, and threat rewired their brains. Fear wasn't eliminated, but transformed into cold aggression. In battle, their minds were already conditioned for chaos. The result, warriors who didn't flinch, didn't break, and didn't hesitate. The phalanx was as much psychological as physical. Spartans won battles before the first spear was thrown. At 20, Spartans graduated, but their training never stopped. They joined a Syssitia, a brotherhood that ate, trained, and fought together for life. Failure to join meant disgrace and loss of citizenship. Spartans were full-time soldiers, unlike other Greeks who trained part-time. Every day was drills, weapons practice, and phalanx maneuvers. The dory spear and Xiphos sword became extensions of their bodies. Most important was moving as one, phalanx tactics drilled to perfection. Even leisure was training, hunting honed stealth and killing skills. Spartans lived war for 40 years, not just a few. They didn't just learn to fight, they became fighting itself. The result, a warrior caste with no equal in the ancient world. For a Spartan, battle was life. The Spartan phalanx was the ultimate killing machine, a living wall of bronze and muscle that dominated the ancient battlefield. Every man in the line was trained from youth for this moment, drilled to perfection in the art of collective warfare. Shields interlocked, spears bristling, they advanced with chilling precision. Each step was measured, every movement synchronized, as if the entire formation shared a single heartbeat. The Aspis shield protected not just the bearer, but the man beside him. Drop it and you doomed the line. This mutual dependence forged an unbreakable bond where the fate of one was the fate of all. Spartans advanced slowly to flute music, never breaking formation. The haunting melody kept their pace steady, their nerves calm, and their minds focused on the task ahead. This deliberate march shattered enemy morale before contact. The sight of the unyielding wall, moving ever closer, was often enough to make foes falter or flee. The first impact was a synchronized spear thrust, practiced thousands of times. The front line struck as one, a forest of spear points driving into the enemy with unstoppable force. The front ranks killed, the rear ranks pushed, turning the phalanx into a human meat grinder. The pressure from behind drove the formation forward, crushing anything in its path. When spears broke, swords finished the job. Spartans switched seamlessly to their xiphos, ready for brutal close-quarters combat. Against this, no individual could survive. The sheer density and discipline of the phalanx left no room for heroics or escape. The 12-second myth is laughable. You'd face a wall, not a man. There was no single opponent, only the relentless advance of the whole. The phalanx was an organism. To fight one Spartan was to fight them all. Every man's strength and courage was multiplied by the unity of the group. Death came in seconds, anonymous and final. There were no duels, no glory, only the crushing, impersonal force of the line. The contest was over before it began. The phalanx left nothing but silence and shattered bodies in its wake, a testament to the terrifying power of unity in war. Sparta is gone, but its lessons endure. Their system was brutal, but it revealed the power of relentless preparation. Spartans didn't hope. They trained for the worst, every day. True competence is built long before crisis arrives. They saw comfort as weakness, forging resilience through hardship. Toughness isn't innate, it's built by facing adversity. In survival, there are no points for style, only victory or annihilation. The Spartan example is extreme, but it shows what's possible at the limits of human discipline. We may not want their world, but their legacy is a benchmark of toughness. Even now, the Spartan standard remains terrifyingly supreme.